Welcome to the Hole in the Wall Business Podcast with Bill and James. I'm James Groves, and along with my business partner, Bill Dement, we want to share our journey as small business owners with you. As owners of Hole in the Wall Drywall Repair, we will attempt to peel back the curtain of owning a small business in the trade service industry and talk about the many adventures of owning a small business. Hey, Bill.
James, good morning to you.
Good morning.
It's the chilly weather this morning.
I was just about to think, I am, Floridian at heart, born and raised.
Yes.
And this 50-degree weather is...
Well, I'm one by choice.
Yeah.
I told our guest I was disappointed. I got up this morning and actually had to put on long pants.
I know. I am wearing a jacket, but I am wearing shorts for the record. So I still am a true Floridian. Good day. We're actually doing a special one today. We got somebody coming in from out of town, and we wanted to make sure that we got them in to meet their schedule.
Yeah.
We're really excited about it because this is somebody who actually we just met with Russ Polvino, and this is somebody who's a direct person in his company that Russ just talks so much about, and just about leadership skills and just experience. And we said, man, if you're going to be in town, we'd love to get you on the podcast. So I'd love to welcome Brad Berry. Brad, welcome. And Brad,
thank you, James.
And Brad, you're a regional sales manager for a pharmaceutical company, and we're absolutely thrilled that you are here. I'm curious to kind of dig in because we kind of just met a few minutes ago, and I'd love to learn.
Well, I remember telling you, I've got this guy, Brad Berry. I think it's going to be great. And you're like, well, he's in pharmaceuticals. How does that relate to small business? And I remember asking Russ, what's his thing? He goes, are you kidding? That guy is all about leadership. I go, that is perfect for every small business.
Every small business, we need that. So wonderful. I'm glad you're here. Why don't you give us a quick little lineup? Who, kind of what's your background, where you came from? Tell my audience kind of who Brad is.
Absolutely. Well, first of all, it's an honor to be here with you guys. I've talked with Russ about this and been excited since we spoke about it. But grew up in East Tennessee.
I could not tell about you.
No, I had never guessed.
I get that. Come by it honest. I went to Carson Newman University, just about an hour outside of Knoxville, played Division II college football. And I think that's really where the principles of leadership probably were born in me, and graduated, worked with Coca-Cola for about a year and a half, and had an opportunity to get into pharmaceuticals. So in 1999, moved to Nashville, and have been in Nashville, a suburb of Hendersonville, since 1999. So been in pharmaceutical for 24 years, various roles. Was a manager early on when my children were younger, and just it wasn't the right time. It was just not a good fit, just being on the road. And so I took another role as a rep, and just kind of went from, fortunately, been very few layoffs, but there have been a few in that industry. And so fast forward to when I met Russ Polvino for the first time. We were working for a company. We started probably 2015. And in May of 2019, he and I are working in Atlanta in a car on our way to a lunch, and we have a team call, and they get on, and the VP says, introductions, and he says, I'm here with HR. And I looked at Russ and I said, Russ, I don't think this is going to go well.
Uh-oh.
And so we were both laid off at that time.
While in the car.
Oh, and as conscientious as Russ is, you'll appreciate this, we go to the lunch so he can get his sign-in sheet for compliance purposes. I said, Russ, I'm not sure the sign-in sheet's going to matter at this point, but we'll go do it. And so fast forward to July of 2019, I took a job with the current company I'm with as regional sales manager. And it was the first time I had the opportunity to build our own team. And so first call I make when I realize I have Atlanta, Georgia as a territory is Russ Polvino.
No.
And it's just when you want to surround yourself with good people and build your team from the inside out.
Yeah.
It was a no-brainer. And so Russ and I have been together, really now since 2015.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. And what a great choice. He's a professional.
Oh, he is
in that industry.
He is. He is.
But just a nice guy.
Yeah.
He was an Eagle Scout, right?
It doesn't surprise me.
That's what I always call it. Hey, so the Eagle Scout says.
Yeah. You just can't ever get him to talk about the Yankees.
Oh my goodness.
Or the Florida Gators. He's always so quiet about that.
Yes. What an odd mix too.
So you had to build the team from scratch?
We did. And I think that was one of the things that I really got excited about, because I've worked with teams, I've inherited teams, I've managed colleagues that I was working shoulder to shoulder with, and then become their manager, which is a whole nother level of leadership. But I think when you get to actually build your team and handpick the people that you want to join your team, I think that there becomes a level of trust, there becomes a level of loyalty, and then there becomes a level of knowing what good looks like, and you try to seek that out and build that team around those qualifications.
Interesting. And so you manage now 10 people?
10 people.
Excellent.
10 people. I cover the Southeast. So we go from Alabama to Florida to Washington, D.C.
Okay. So we caught you on a trip here?
I was actually working yesterday here in Orlando. My daughter, tell you the family background, married, have 3 children. I have a daughter here at Disney. She's 21. She works at Disney. She goes to UCF. Another daughter at UT. She's a junior. And then I have a son that's 18, senior in high school.
Wow.
So
excellent.
Oh, you're almost done?
Almost.
It's nice when they're done.
That's
it's
right.
Nice. It's done.
But are they ever really done?
Yeah. So you mentioned earlier that you played football.
I did. Yes, sir.
And was that something you did? You played sports growing up?
I did. So sports to me have been kind of everything that I've been about.
I read a book years ago, a biography about Tom Landry, and he was a big proponent of kids sports. And his theory was that sports gives an opportunity for kids to learn things like teamwork, like sacrifice, like setting goals, like managing yourself, that they don't get an opportunity to do in other aspects of life. And so I see a lot of that where these guys have been in sports their whole life, maybe even played college or maybe not, but they've drawn lessons from that they use in their professional lives.
100%. I think sports is one of the greatest teachers of life. Not only teamwork, sacrifice, perseverance, determination, all the things that you can say, but I think it also teaches you failure. Not only just the wins and losses, but if you're battling for a position and maybe someone beats you out for that position, it's okay. Next play, next man up, right? And we talk about it a lot within our team is, you've got to celebrate the small victories, because if you go every day and you get beat up and there's things that happen, but you don't, at the end of the day, celebrate something good that happened, then you're just continuing to beat yourself up.
Yeah. And in sales, you're to some degree tilting against windmills a lot, aren't you?
Absolutely.
You're always facing a headwind. You always have opposition to what you're trying to promote.
And it's even as simple as if you got to see a doctor that you've never seen before, or you got to speak with someone in the office that they said, well, they're a no-see office, and you actually crack the door just a little bit, that's a win.
That's a win.
And you need to celebrate it. And so I think a lot of times, especially salespeople are so headstrong that they see the big picture, but they miss sometimes the steps it takes to get there, and you got to celebrate them. And I think sometimes as what I've learned as a manager is you've got to be there to be their cheerleader.
Yeah.
Because they're driven. And a lot of times, we're all hard on ourselves at some point. And sometimes you have to take a step back just to say, you know what? That was pretty good. We accomplished something.
So your job also would entail kind of coaching, right?
100%
Maybe
coaching.
trolling for new techniques or dredging up old ones that maybe we haven't used in a while to try to offer to your sales team.
Yes, sir. And one of the things they get tired of hearing me say is be brilliant at the basics. And it's kind of the blocking and tackling. Whatever that job is, the fundamentals are the same. And you have to perfect them, and you have to be able to do them forwards and backwards. And when you can do that, then you're kind of taking your level of competitiveness to another level, and outworking the competition. And I love to read stuff, and especially Kobe Bryant. And if you think about the Mamba mentality that he had, and he was always in the gym, at all hours, after a game, before a game.
Yes.
I heard an interview the other day with a guy that played on one of the dream teams with him. And he said, I was so excited. I got down to breakfast. Had my gear on. I was going to work out, and I got down there and I look, and Kobe has got ice bags on his knees because he's already worked out. He's already been to the gym. He's already got his shots in, eating breakfast. And here I am thinking, well, now I'm defeated because he's already outworking me.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. That's great. It's a great example. I want to go back. The team aspect is so cool because I know that a lot of your guys, they're all remote, right? So you now have to manage a team, build camaraderie in a foundation of this remote team of grown individuals who are not even in the same area. They're all working different areas.
That's right. And so, we've got 10 people spread across the Southeast, and they're all tenured, and they've, probably the least amount of experience on our team in the industry is probably 8-9 years.
Wow.
So we've got a very tenured team. And the one of the things that I take a lot of pride in is when we started building our team in 2019, we still have 7 of the original people that joined that team.
Wow.
And to me, that says that you've helped create a place where people want to be.
Yeah, and there's stability.
There's stability, and so that means the most to me. And I think when you talk about the team, James, up through COVID, managing was a lot different.
Yeah.
And when COVID hit, unfortunately, there's not a book in a leadership class that talks about managing in a pandemic.
Right.
And so to your point, with everyone being in different places throughout the Southeast, Zoom became a huge part of what we did. And that was really our livelihood.
Mm-hmm.
I just, my wife is an accountant. She works remote as well. They do a lot of Teams and Zoom meetings as well. But I can just see her trying to connect with her crew. And at times it's difficult when you need to have access to somebody. There's no water cooler talk.
Yeah.
There's no, you're working. So when you're on the clock, you're working. There's no going to the bathroom, going to the break room and having a snack and chit-chatting with your fellow coworkers. It's difficult when you're doing that. But to build a team that's got camaraderie and that's got discipline, when you're so far away from each other, that's got to take a skill. Is there anything that you've kind of used over the time to kind of keep that teamwork together, that drive together?
Yeah, I think there's a few things. One of the things I think, obviously, the foundation of it's built on trust, right? You're surrounding yourself with people that you can trust. And I think when you have that, then no matter what happens or what the situation is, that they're doing what they're supposed to be doing and they're going to get the job done. So I think that's the foundation for it. I think the other thing is just communication. And I don't know that you can over communicate in times when you're separated and, it's constant check-in because now you've got kids at home, and kids aren't in school. So they're in the background of conference calls. And so you play it up to have some time where, hey, let's take Johnny to school day or take Johnny to work day. And so he gets to join mom or dad on a conference call.
Yes.
So we kind of play some of it up to have fun. But, at the end of the day, everyone would always get together and make sure we spent that time talking about whatever the weekly objectives were or anything that we were talking about. But to me, it's trust, communication, and then making sure that they're having fun, that they're enjoying what they're doing. Because if they're not enjoying what they're doing, then I've missed the mark somewhere.
Right.
Yeah.
So how do you disseminate, say you learn a new leadership skill or you want to kind of convey an attitude? What is the trick or a way that you've been able to just get your team on the same page? Do you have a technique or is it just we're going to have a quick meeting real fast and kind of talk through it?
I think being genuine.
Yeah.
I think, people can see through somebody that's just kind of letting it fly, and making stuff up. And so I think, being genuine in your approach, being genuine in because at the end of the day, we're dealing with people. And I think if I'm asking them to do something that I'm not willing to do, then that's not going to go very well. And so, I've got to walk that walk for them if we're going to talk it. And so I think that's the biggest thing. I think really just making sure that they trust you and you've earned that trust. And we were talking earlier, and I mentioned Jon Gordon. One of the things that he talks about, we went through a seminar. The old way of doing things was tough love, and you've heard that football coaches had tough love, or a parent showed tough love, and so the reverse of that now is to love tough. And he talks about when your people trust you and your people believe in you, then when you have to have those hard conversations, they can be done a lot better because they know you care about them. Mm-hmm. And if you care about them, then that conversation is going to hopefully go a lot better because they know that you're just holding them to a standard or an accountability that you want to uphold. And I read something the other day where it says accountability is not what you do to someone, it's what you do for someone. And I think people get that misconstrued sometimes, and they take it to heart if you're asking them to do something that they've agreed to do and they know that the expectations are there.
Yeah. I've got a friend that'll call me once in a while, another business guy, and he'll ask me, he said, "What are you doing today?" He said, "Are you doing the right thing or are you doing the easy thing?"
Yeah.
It's a challenge.
Yeah. And it's, and that's because he cares about you. Yeah. Right. And so that he's not coming at you just trying to jab you. He's really asking you for coming from a good place.
Yeah, it is.
I love the tough love, the tough love versus love tough. I've never heard that before, and I agree because you're a team,
right?
Which is another word for family,
right?
And I'm hard. My brothers and I, we rib each other, but there's always love there. And then even in our environment here, we've got people that sometimes you have to love them tough, love them through that situation. But it's not because we're trying to be mean. It's just because we want them to evolve and grow and protect the brand of the company. So if I was to learn one thing from this podcast, that was
good. I want to talk about setting objectives. You mentioned that a couple of minutes ago, and I gather that part of your job is setting objectives. I wonder kind of how you do that and how often you follow up with your team regarding those.
Yeah. So really for us, objectives kind of cascade down, and then we have personal objectives or goals that we want to set. And so one of the things that I've done the last couple of years, and it really came out of my time playing college football, because we would always have a yearly kind of a theme that we would roll out in fall camp. And so, for instance, one year it was make today count. So that theme talks about every day, no matter what you're doing, take advantage of the opportunities that you have, because you never know when we're going to come up. So just make today count. Don't worry about yesterday. Don't plan for tomorrow. Win the day. Make today count. Last year it was never settle. And so, it's kind of having those rally cries, really, that.
Yeah, and they encompass a whole idea.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so, last year it was just never settle. Don't settle for where you are. Continue to grow to get better. This year it's be the difference. And, it's not only in work, it's be the difference. The disease state we sell in is a very debilitating disease. And so we can be the difference for those patients, the care partners, the family members, but take it a step further. You can be the difference if you just open the door for someone. If you greet someone by their first name, because, research shows that no one likes to hear anything better than their name call.
Yeah.
And try it sometime. If if you're at a register or something, you see a name tag, say, "Hey, thanks, James. I appreciate it." And they're like, you stun them. I mean, they don't know what to do when they hear their own name called. And so be the difference. Be the difference. Somebody smiles. Be the difference. Somebody, has a great day. And so you own that. And so that's kind of things like that I took from football that you can add into, a team.
Okay.
One of the other things that we started doing was the 1-word challenge. And so every year, starting the new year, people have their New Year's resolutions. So it's kind of along the same lines of that. But so now I challenge the team to, what's your 1 word for the year? What are you gonna do that is gonna define you? And so, we've got anything from adventurous, perseverance, discipline, growth, embrace, just things like that. And so for me, it gives me an opportunity to check in with them. Hey, you said perseverance. How are you doing with that? How's it going this year? How you sticking with it, or are you good? And so that's some of the things from an objective, once you get past the sales numbers and the values and everything that you have to do from a company, then from a personal level, we try to focus on things that are a little different and really, we talked a little bit about the football side of things. I like to say that I'm a coach without a whistle because a lot of the ways I look at things are ways that coaches taught me. Because, if I'm working with someone through asking better questions, it's the same way somebody worked with a wide receiver on how to block or how to work with an offensive lineman on how to, hey, when you get in that 2 gap there, you got to turn and seal. Or, if you're working with a quarterback, you got to read where you're going to throw. And so it's really the same concept. It's just different ways of.
So I see you guys as a company, I guess it's your company culture. You guys are putting a lot of energy into personal and company development, right?
Yes, sir. And I think in terms of culture, one of the things that we've done, and we started this division in August of 19. And so that culture has continued to evolve. And I think you're seeing it from upper level down to rep level and knowing the importance of it because, if you read anything about culture, it's not static, it's dynamic and it's always changing. And you have to have that. And you've got to be able to create the culture where people want to be and that they own it and they're part of it and they have a voice. And I think that's the thing for me is to be here since we started and to look back and see where we are now. Just like, you and I were talking
really
earlier,
fulfilling.
You look back at this company that you started and look back where it was and you said, used to not be anything.
There was just nothing.
And now there's trucks and now there's
people
and there's a logo. And so, and so it's fun to look back and see that culture and the culture that you have here. I saw, walking through and looking at the core values, that reminds people of what the culture is. And you just have to keep that forefront because if you let it die and then you don't have anything.
Well, in the construction industry, it's not unusual that a company isn't trying to make a positive culture. And we're aware that we have employees that come to work for somebody else and the company they came from manages by yelling. So everything is an accusation, everything is yelling, everything is intimidation. Yeah, that is a culture. Yeah. They have established a culture, but it isn't healthy.
It's maybe the wrong one.
Yes.
Yeah, no one wants to work there. I mean, long term, the turnover rate's super high. Yeah, because they're always, feeling like they're going to be offended or they're going to get hit. Yeah, there's a company in town that's notorious for getting into fights and verbal altercations with people
on a job site. Even.
Yeah, but listen, we're in the construction industry and it can be rough. So we've always wanted ourselves to be the anti-drywall company. All of our guys are good guys. We treat them as nice as we can. Did you know that there are over 140 million homes in the U.S.? 97% of them have walls and ceilings that are built using drywall. The drywall repair industry is simply enormous, valued at over $13 billion a year. We're hole-in-the-wall drywall repair, and for years we have been perfecting the art of repairing drywall, developing and refining our systems, and strengthening our brand. Our business model is simple, scalable, and easy to learn. We believe it's a real game changer. We are successful drywall repair pros who decided to take our repair business to a higher level, growing both our franchise training and support to industry-leading standards. You'll benefit from our vast experience helping your franchise hit the ground running and achieve success quickly. We'll give you access to our marketing team that has created strategic programs designed to get your phone ringing and booking new business fast. Join a fast-growing leader in an exciting dynamic segment of the home service industry by franchising with hole-in-the-wall drywall repair. Start building your own business and securing your own financial future today. Kind of going back to the theme, I'm not sure we have a one-word theme, but we've really been focusing on this idea of just leveling up, right? Just even find the small wins that can help you as a person or as a company level up. And whether it's you're painting a wall or whether it's you're reading a book, there's a way to kind of level up. And we did a podcast months ago, the aggregation of marginal gains based on
the author is James Clear.
Yeah, Atomic Habits.
Okay. Yeah. And the concept being you're constantly looking for a 5% improvement in every aspect of your business. Well, that's beneficial because if you can increase everything you do by 5%, you're leveling up. Everything is getting better. The unseen thing that we've discovered is that the very act of looking for a 5% improvement, sometimes we stumble into a 10 or 20% improvement. Now you're really moving the needle.
Yeah. There's that mentality that if it's not broke, don't fix it.
Right.
So status quo is good. And I believe that if it's not broke, there's no need to fix it. But sometimes you have to do a self-analysis. And just one really stupid, simple thing here, but we have had the same phone system for 8 years. And, just through a local company, and it was fine. It was fine. When COVID came, we had to work remote. We just plugged in our house, and it worked just fine. And as we're going through the franchising process, we want to make sure that we have the proper phone systems for for our future franchisees. We started just kind of looking at potential. Do we need to do a switch? Because we didn't have to. I literally can forward all the phones from anywhere to my location without an issue. But just the act of looking for a change, not only did I find a better system that allows us to really have the functionality for our franchisees, as well as more control here locally for us, it's also cheaper. And so not only did I get a better system, I'm doing it and saving hundreds of dollars a month just because we just tried to level up just a little bit.
Yeah, you made a little tweak.
It's a little tweak.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, we bought a pickup truck, I don't know, 3-4 years ago, and we wanted to logo it. And our old logos, was great. They're fine. And if you look at our older trucks, you'll see they're kind of a smaller logo on there, and it looks great. We've used that for years. But for the new truck, we said, we want a bigger logo. So we redesigned.
Yeah, that was the only directive we gave Andy, wasn't it? We want to see the logo from a half a mile.
Yeah. And he redesigned the entire look of our vehicles to the point that now every vehicle is now morphing into this new look, new design. It's changing kind of like how we brand the company, all from one little tweak. And we've now been able to create a much bigger, more present logo just for that look of just trying to find that 5%, just to level up just a little bit. That's kind of like the lady we had on last week, Christy. She's about credit, just level up your credit.
Yeah.
Just find that way to, everyone we talk to, it's in business, always trying to find a way to get that next edge, to get that next, something that's going to save them. What I like about your team is we talk a lot here about you're not doing business in a vacuum, because as business owners, it can be very isolating. I talked to a business owner yesterday, and he's working in the business. He's trying to grow the business. He wants to buy another business, and he's like, I'm not sure how I'm going to do it. I don't trust anyone to do this job for me. And we had to sit here and we just kind of coached him. Listen, man, you're going to have to start working on your business and not work in your business. And once you kind of get that shift, that philosophy, it kind of makes you kind of move that needle just a little bit. But working as a team really helps you do that because you're not working in a vacuum. Russ is not out there in the wind by himself.
Right. He
always has the support of his fellow coworkers and his manager.
Right.
So, soapbox over. But
I'm curious among your team though.
Yeah.
Do you find that they encourage each other as well?
Very much so. And I think at the heart of a salesperson is competitiveness. Right.
That's very
true. They want to be the best. And so, in that competitiveness, they're not only trying to one up each other, but they're also challenging each other because they know if they do well, then they're going to continue to do well. And so it's kind of a rising of the tide between the group because they all want to do well. And then in the flip side of that is if they have a problem, we'll be on a call and somebody will say, "Hey, I got a question. I'm really struggling in this one office. I can't get to see who I need to see. Have y'all handled that?" And then, the floodgates open and so they're pouring into each other because I think when you've got a solid team and you've got solid individuals, yes, individually you want to be the best.
Yeah.
But also at the heart of a great team is you want to
and that's
rise
an
together.
inherent part of the culture you have, right? We're actually looking for that with franchisees as we build out that we're going to learn from them as well. One of the first guys that we sold franchise to said, "I can't wait till I'm selling more than you guys."
Yeah.
Right. Because we run the Orlando office and we've been at it for 15 years. He's like, "I want to beat you guys." And yeah.
And we're trying
he's
to
a smart
build
guy. He will.
When we want to build that team dynamic so all the franchisees can talk to each other and someone learns a new technique or new marketing skill set or something that even me and as corporate may or may not know, they can help each other out, find new techniques, find new products that can help grow them as a business. Because that synergy, for lack of a buzzword, is important because you always have this momentum when you're always working, when you know you're not in a vacuum, not by yourself, and you're part of a greater cause. When you win as a team and you fail as a team, obviously we want individual success. There's always an MVP player, but the team won,
Right?
And that's a big deal.
Well, and I think to your point, as you're looking at other franchisees, you owe it to the others to bring in good people, and so the times when we've had someone leave and I've had to replace for that territory, I tell them in the interview, look, I owe it to my team to bring in someone that's not going to disrupt the culture. I owe it to them. They look to me to make a hire that's not only going to be good for the territory, but also good for the overall team. Because as soon as you bring in someone that just destroys everything that you've built,
it only takes one person in a choir singing off key.
That's right, exactly. That's a great way to say it. That's true. A great way to say it. And so they look to you to make sure that you do the right thing and you hire someone that is going to be a fit. And I think a lot of times people go for the glam or you see it all the time in professional sports, but maybe sometimes it's not the right person that you hire.
Interesting. And you're in Nashville now?
I'm just in Hendersonville, home of Johnny Cash.
Excellent.
Where Johnny Cash lived. His house, actually, interesting story. If you saw the movie Walk the Line, Johnny Cash, so his house on Old Hickory Lake, beautiful wood house. It was next door to Roy Orbison's house, and currently Marty Stewart lives in that same. I see Marty Stewart at Kroger's every now and then.
Oh my!
So it's interesting. But when Johnny and June passed away, they had their funeral at my church, First Baptist Church, Hendersonville, and so they sold the house. Well, one of the Bee Gees bought the house sight unseen. And so as they were kind of restoring it and going to put some varnish on the wood and everything, a spark caught and burned it to the ground.
Oh my goodness.
And so that whole there's still the wood or the stone wall around the premises of where the house was, but it was a beautiful just wood home. But yeah, Johnny Cash was there. Taylor Swift went to high school in Hendersonville. So about 20 minutes north of Nashville.
Nice. I spent some time in Nashville. With my former company, we had an office, a warehouse in Murfreesboro.
Okay.
And then we had a studio right on Broadway. Right on the third floor of Bailey's, we had an LED light.
I think the number was 100 people a day are moving to Nashville.
Yeah.
So
there's a lot there, and it's
it's a fast growing state.
It's a good vibe, and there's some good food and music. And I laugh because we would go to lunch, and we would go to lunch down on Broadway, and there's bands playing at like noon. I'm like, there's bands playing at noon. And so we'd eat lunch in one of the clubs there, and there's bands out there playing. And
good music.
Yeah, it's great. And they take an offering.
Okay.
It's like the drummer will do a drum solo, and the lead singer walks around with like a little hat, just kind of,
interesting.
They're playing for tips.
Yeah.
But it's just a nice vibe. There's a great guitar store right there on Broadway that we just love going to.
Yes.
Grumman's or something like that, but outstanding.
Yeah, it's a fun city.
Yeah, I've got some good friends that live up there. Actually, the guy who did this design up there, he's a detective up near Nashville.
Oh wow.
So hopefully make the trail up there and the trip up there soon to see them and get some of the lakes up there are just outstanding. Gorgeous.
It's beautiful. I mean, I cover all the Southeast, and it's interesting. I was in Miami recently and talked about where I was from, and they're like, "Oh, we love going to Gatlinburg." And I'm thinking,
that's almost a different state,
You'd
isn't
like
it?
to go to Gatlinburg, and of all places. And so it's just interesting that people love. Sometimes you take for granted where you're from, and so then people remind you. Like,
when we leave the state and go on vacation, people are like, "You're from Orlando? Why wouldn't you just like?" No, we're looking to not be in Orlando. That's what vacation means.
Yes.
Not in Orlando.
Yeah, absolutely.
I look at my wife on vacation. I go, "You know what I like about this place? It's not Orlando."
I don't care where we are as long as it's not here.
That's right.
So when you're not being an epic regional sales manager, what do you do for fun? How do you decompress?
So I love to golf. My wife and I love to travel, and so she's actually in pharmaceuticals as well. So it's kind of nice for both of us to kind of get away. But we love to travel, and she is an outstanding. I think that's her side gig.
That does make the trip easier, doesn't it? When somebody wants to own it. Yep.
Absolutely. And I mean, she's undefeated so far in terms of what she's planned and where we've been. So it's incredible. But, really just golf, Love to be on the water. Grew up on the water. So just being out on a boat, being on the lake, there's nothing better.
Yeah, love it.
So Brad, tell me, what is like currently inspiring you? What kind of gets your motivation, your juices going? What are you using to inspire your team right now?
So James, I would say probably I've done a lot of investing more in myself, in reading and listening to podcasts and really just finding ways to say something different. And so this past summer, the management team, I was kind of asked by my boss to kind of be the leadership person for our management team. And so one of the things that I thought would be really good was I listened to and read a lot of Jon Gordon books. One of his most popular books is The Energy Bus. He writes a lot on power of positive leadership, building teams. He's actually got one book, How to Win in the Locker Room. And so to me, again, it's that correlation between sports and business,
right.
Sports and leadership. And so one of the things he talked about at the presentation we went to was the root and the fruit. And, in sales, in business, the fruit is your numbers, your business. Is it growing? How do you continue to produce fruit? Well, at the base of it, at the root of it, is the root of the tree. So if you think about a tree, if you're not focusing on the root, if you're not focusing on the people, so in terms of for me, if I'm not focusing on my people and helping them grow, develop, get the resources they need, then if I'm not watering those roots, the tree will never produce the fruit. And so, if you're focusing too much on the fruit and thinking all about the big picture and the sales and, how many franchisees can we bring in, but you're not focusing on.
You're working on the wrong end of the equation,
exactly.
aren't you?
And so that's really stuck with me in terms of where my priorities are. Because if you're not focusing on the roots and watering them and helping them grow, then the fruit's going to die off.
It reminds me of, the firm foundation scripture. You want to have that root is really the foundation of those trees.
Right.
And so if you don't have a good foundation, you'll just blow away in the wind.
Yeah.
So in case, listen, it's difficult as a owner of a business not to look at the fruit. Like, oh my gosh, we need to make more money, need to make more sales, need to have more people, need to buy different trucks. You always want to kind of grow, but if you neglect, the root, I agree. That's great. That's great stuff.
Yeah, that's good. That's good stuff right there.
Go read that book.
Yeah. He's, obviously to me, he's kind of the person that I get a lot of insight from in terms of business, just motivational stuff. But yeah, his books are great books, easy to read, short parable type books.
We like easy to read.
That's right. Everyone does.
I may read one then.
Yeah.
Instead of just listening to it on Audible.
Yeah. But that's, those are things that I try to incorporate just, within the team. James and I were talking earlier. I send out a daily little motivational deal. And I keep that theme for the year attached to it because, you got to keep it consistent. You let it, January, February, March, it's all, hey, gung ho. But if you don't keep it in June, July, and August, then they forget it. So I send out something that just has that tagline this year. It's be the difference. And I was telling James, sometimes if I forget to send those out, they're like, hey, you haven't sent any motivational things.
Oh, that's
out
interesting.
lately. Why are you not doing that?
Are you unmotivated?
Right. And you're thinking in your head, well, I didn't know if you really paid attention to it. Anyway, it's funny. They tend to call me the Ted Lasso. The other managers call me Ted Lasso and all this stuff. And I kind of embraced it because, it's kind of fun. And they're always asking, hey, Ted, what do you got? What do you got for us this week? Or what do you have this coming out? So tell us something good.
I love that. That's really good.
Mm-hmm. That's good.
Well, Brad, it was great having you here.
Oh, I've enjoyed it. This has been great.
We could swing in, do a sweet podcast. We got to have you back. We were talking earlier. We got to have you find a way to get you back. Next time you have some more motivational rooster fruit stuff, come share that stuff with us.
Yeah, that's good stuff, man. We just soak it up like a sponge.
No, I appreciate it. I've been looking forward to it. And I could come in and talk about anything. We can talk about sports or leadership, culture, you name it.
Yeah.
Well,
Just not drywall.
We absolutely would. Yeah, no, don't. We got that covered. We don't need any more competition. We are just going to leave an open invitation for you when you're available and you want to come back and be on the program sometime. We'd love to have you.
Listen, we'll make time for you.
No, this has been a blast. I've enjoyed it. I appreciate it.
Well, thanks again for being here. And if people want to get a hold of you, they can find you on LinkedIn.
Absolutely.
It's there for them. Thanks for listening. Brad, thanks for coming. And I can't wait for you to come back again and make sure you give Russ a little elbow.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
All right, everyone.
I'll blow him twice, once for me.
Thanks, everybody, for listening. We'd like to thank you for listening to the Hole in the Wall Business Podcast with Bill and James. We'd love for you to join our Facebook group and keep the conversation going. If you'd like to learn more about us and our business, check us out at holeinthewall.com. If you'd like to learn more about how to start a Hole in the Wall franchise, go to holeinthewallfranchising.com.